changed my environment. I haven't been back to the block since. I see those people from time to time. I see those people that didn't see the vision, didn't understand, and I shake their hand and I hug them because I'm happy to see them. And I understand that they didn't see it, and I know why they didn't see it. I get it. I hope they can see a vision for themselves that's bigger than the one that they had then. And I hope that they're on track toward fulfilling that vision. I haven't seen a lot of them in a while. Chances are I won't see a lot of them ever again. But I hope they see themselves. I hope they see how dope they are, because a lot of them were really dope. They were just afraid. They were afraid of their power, and they were afraid of someone else leaving them. And I get that now. I hope they're not so caught up in someone else leaving them that they learn to abandon themselves. I hope they see how great they were and how great they are for the ones that are still living. Because every time I go home, it's another mural, it's more candles, it's more t-shirts, it's another picture on the corner with teddy bears and flowers. I hope they see that we're stronger together, and that someone seeing something bigger for their lives is probably the person that you should want to be around, and not to abuse or take advantage of, but just to see if some of that energy that that person has can rub off on you, so that you can start pursuing different things in your life. I hope for the ones that are still around, I hope they see the importance of that and know that it's not too late. We were all in the same classes. We all grew up in the same neighborhood. And when I see some of them, they're like, yo, fam, how'd you do this? I hope they see they can do it too. Life brings about stress. I'm not saying that there will be no stress, but there's stress that serves you and stress that doesn't. You just get the opportunity to choose your stress. Stress is really a code word for fear. And when you realize that, you realize stress is optional because it's based on your perspective. If you change your perspective, chances are you won't process the information or process the situation as stressful. It's all on how you view life and how you view the circumstance. All right, so we go for things we really don't want, but we don't know we don't want them until we get them. We go for the nice body, not health. We go for the watch instead of the timepiece. We go for buying out the bar instead of buying the club. We go for the girl that looks good instead of the girl that is good for you. We go for what looks cool to other people instead of what is cool to us. So in those instances, long term, perhaps it'll serve you because you'll learn a lot in that process. Short term, it won't, because it actually pushes you further away from who you actually are.
What is the arc of progress? In this case, we talked about improving in the field of basketball, but let's say sports.
There isn't a one-size-fits-all arc of progress, but typically, whatever it is that you're doing, it starts off very slowly. And the duration of that time in which it's slow depends on what you're doing, and it depends on the person. Right? But usually it starts off very slowly, and then it grows or progresses exponentially from there. So we were talking about basketball, right? And how you can practice for a month, every day, all day, and still seemingly not get better. But if you were to do that for 2 years, chances are you will begin to see the progress very quickly after that 2-year period of time. For example, I played basketball my entire childhood for the most part. I would say the first 5-6 years I was just dabbling. I wasn't really interested in the sport as much as I was interested in the entertaining aspect of it. So you had and one, and I was trying to emulate all of the moves that they were doing in and one, and that was really my idea of basketball. It wasn't really formal basketball. It wasn't Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and all of those things. It was more so about what can I do with the basketball that was impressive, right? It wasn't about having an IQ for the game. It wasn't really about mastering the fundamentals. It wasn't about any of that. It was about all of the tricks that I can do. And for the first 5, 6 years, that's really all that it was. And then after that, I started really focusing on the fundamentals of basketball and what it meant to really be a basketball player and not someone who can just handle the ball really well. And I soon learned that I didn't even really know how to handle the ball really well, because all of those moves that you're doing in one are not allowed in formal basketball, right? You get penalized for 85% of it. So when I took those moves away, I realized I wasn't actually a good basketball player. I just had all these moves that were illegal in the game of basketball, right? So it took me some time to really get the fundamentals down. But once I got the fundamentals down, everything else came exponentially faster, right? And because I was playing so often, not only did I get better, meaning just hand-eye coordination and not carrying the basketball, not wrist carrying, not discontinuing, not double dribbling and things like that. Not traveling, that was a big one. I got a lot faster. Like my movements were so much more fluid and effortless. It became second nature. Like I knew where the basketball was at all times. And I knew how to move with it. And I knew how to make it move with me at any speed that I had the capacity to move at that time. So I would say the arc may not be exactly, the timing of the arc may not be exactly the same. But usually it's a slow start and then it grows exponentially from there. Sometimes people have a natural talent though. They start something, they do something one time, and it's like they've been doing it for 3 years. Right? So sometimes that happens. But if you don't have a natural talent for it, typically it's slow in the beginning and then it grows exponentially from there. And if you do have a natural talent for it, it's like the reverse. It's like you start off really quickly. You go through what you know how to do innately really quickly because you know how to do it. And then you kind of hit a wall where you start to see that talent is not enough and now you need to add skill to it. And from the point where you are not talented and you have to add skill, it sort of mimics the same experience as someone who starts something and they don't have any talent for it. It's very slow, and then it picks up exponentially as you learn. But having talent for something, meaning being relatively good at it from the very beginning, it's encouraging for most. But yeah, that's typically how it goes.
Yeah. When it comes to fitness, especially bodybuilding, you kind of get a reverse. Like the most of your gains, like the newbie gains you make in like your first couple of years, your first year really, and then you stagnate, you plateau, and you gotta work really hard just to get over that plateau. You see any truth in that?
Yes. But it also depends on what you're doing. Like a gymnast has a different experience than, say, someone who's lifting weights does. But even with someone who's strictly lifting weights, it really depends on your approach. If you come from not exercising at all and you start exercising, the shift in your body in the beginning is very quick because you've never exercised before, right? But if you really want to break, and that's not even really like you're getting stronger, that's just that you're activating the muscle that's already there, that's been laying dormant because you haven't been using it. And because you're utilizing the muscle, your aesthetic is changing. Right? It's almost like you activate your aesthetic as well. And so it seems like you're making these great strides in the beginning, but really you're just acknowledging what was already there. Now that you acknowledge what was already there, now the work begins. And now it seems like it's a slower process to see progress, because now this is actual progress. Now you're actually focused on getting stronger. Now you're actually focused on building more muscle mass, not just activating muscle that was already there and burning fat. So it's actually a different experience for your body. It's not just that you're gaining muscle and it was so easy to gain muscle in the beginning. It really wasn't. You weren't gaining muscle in the beginning. You were just activating the muscle that was already there. So that's kind of like the person who has talent. They start something new. They're really good at it. In the beginning, they get a lot of traction. They're acknowledging what was already there. Then it comes a point where they hit a wall. They have to add skill to their talent. And now they're actually building something that wasn't there. So it's the same concept.
Can you speak about consistency and how that aligns with the law of compensation?
Consistency and how that aligns with the law of compensation. The law of compensation is pretty much like opportunity cost. Whatever time, for everything you do, you lose the opportunity to do something else. Right? It's like a balance. It's the universe balancing itself. Right? For everything you do, you gain something, but you also lose something. You gain the opportunity of doing this, but you lose the opportunity of doing something else. You gaining, for example, if you're in the gym and you're exercising, or if you're applying for a certain job, right? For every job you apply to, you gain some momentum with that organization, but you lose momentum with another organization. The other organization is the organization you didn't apply to, or the job you didn't apply for. It's a law of compensation. The more consistent you are, the larger your profits and losses are. The more consistent I am in one direction, the further it pushes me in that direction, the further away I move from the other direction, or what could have been a goal in a different direction.
You think that's worth it?
If it serves you, if it's pushing you into a direction you actually want to go into. Oftentimes we go for the shiny items. Right? So we go for things we really don't want, but we don't know we don't want them until we get them. Right? We go for the nice body, not health. We go for the timepiece. We go for the watch instead of the timepiece. We go for buying out the bar instead of buying the club. We go for the girl that looks good instead of the girl that is good for you. We go for what looks cool to other people instead of what is cool to us. So in those instances, long term, perhaps it'll serve you because you'll learn a lot in that process. Short term, it won't, because it actually pushes you further away from who you actually are.
But I don't know if the law of compensation was exactly the one I was referring to then, because I'm talking about the law of, not really law, but like it accumulates. Like effort accumulates.
You mean compounded effort?
Right.
Yeah. That kind of goes to actually like playing a sport. In the beginning, it's slow. But the effort you put in over time makes it so if after you've done it for a certain period of time, you hit a point where you kind of have a growth spurt. You grow exponentially because of the effort that you put in the beginning. Right? And then it slows down again. You keep having these cycles. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. Like the stock market. Right? There are times when the stock market was completely flat. You had no gains. You kept putting money into it, hopefully, but you didn't see any gain. There was a decade where that happened. And then the market skyrocketed. If you were putting money into it the whole 10 years, you reap the benefits of that. If you didn't, you missed out to some extent. Yeah, you may have caught it on the incline still once it started to rise, but there was less buy-in from you. Right? You didn't take the opportunity to accumulate that base, so that you didn't receive the impact of the incline the way that the person who took the time out to accumulate that base did. So, compounded effort is just you getting better over time and going through the ebbs and flows of that process, the process required to get better. It's the same thing with applying for a job. It's the same thing with working at an organization. You know, a lot of people start in an organization, they may be star players immediately. Right? They come into an organization, they add tremendous value, they get promoted 2, 3, 4 times right away. 3, 4 years every year to get a promotion. Sometimes they get a promotion within 3 to 4 months. Then they hit a wall. They get to a part of an organization that doesn't come so naturally to them, that they weren't exactly prepared for, and now they have to retool. Now what happens in the process of retooling when the organization takes a turn while you're retooling? Which is happening now with a lot of organizations, especially the ones that are focused on a tech transition. Even the companies that are completely tech organizations, tech keeps changing, right? So you have to constantly pivot. For those people, until you master the art of pivoting, it could feel like you're stagnant. So the effort you put in is what's going to determine how quickly you grow from there, or if you grow at all. Right? If you keep putting in the effort, then you'll have another growth spurt at some point. Because now the effort just builds on itself. Yeah, there may have been quite a few transitions, maybe 3, 4, 5 transitions from a tech perspective. But because you've ridden a wave of all of them, you've learned something from all of them in a way that you can apply to the next thing. Because now you understand a bit more about tech. Because you've been in the field of technology for, let's say, 10 years at this point. So you have enough information to now have better foresight as to where this could potentially go and what the impact could potentially be, because you know where it came from and you know the intricacies and the nuance attached to its past. So then that growth spurt happens again. And there's really no timeline for that. It's not to say, oh, I've been doing this for a year, I've been doing this for 2 years. My growth spurt is coming next year. Depends on the person, depends on the circumstance. The goal is to stick with it. Whatever it may be for you. If it still serves you.
Talking a bit about like investing. I see a lot of people my age already like investing in like coins. Not in like really in like one business, but like just like in smaller like things like on like crypto and these like small players, like they because they don't have like the money to do like big investments, but like small companies that are like on the market.
Who are the small players? Like you mean, when you say companies, it's kind of confusing because you said not companies and then you said small companies on the market.
Is a Bitcoin, is that a company? Like a
Bitcoin is a coin. It's a cryptocurrency.
right.
Okay.
But then also like certain markets like for forex, for instance.
Okay.
Like I see people like that are like investing around like certain markets at a young age. Do you think those things are a good investment to be doing when you in your 20s?
If you've weighed the pros and cons, and you have an investment thesis. Yes. What are you trying to accomplish? That's essentially what the investment thesis is.
In this case, you're trying to put your money somewhere, don't look at it, and in 10 years, you wish to gain something from it. Financially.
Makes sense. Depending on your research. High level, it makes sense. The adoption of cryptocurrency is one which is unchallenged. It's second to none. The rate of growth of cryptocurrency is something like we've never seen before. Doesn't mean it's going to continue to do that. But that is enough for some people to say, maybe I should have a stake in this. How big or how small is based on their analysis. But it's enough to get people's attention at least. And encourage them to be a part of it. In some shape, form, or fashion. So the fact that you have young people that are interested in Bitcoin, or Ethereum, or Solana, or Cardano, or etc. It's it makes sense.
Think it's a good investment to make a year in your 20s?
Yes. It's risky. It doesn't really have a use case that we can see, that we can readily see. Yes, it could potentially have that in 15, 20 years. And it does have some value now. And so, yeah, I think that it makes sense to invest in it in your 20s because you're still young enough to bounce back from most poor decisions in your 20s. So, and whatever money you're making now that you put into that, you won't miss it. Right? So, yeah. It makes sense at least.
What I've never understood is like, how do you research what to invest in?
I don't specialize in that. There's a lot of people who do, and they make their information readily available to the general public. So I have ideas, but I wouldn't give investment advice. I know what I do, but I wouldn't even share that with the general public. Because for the people who don't have an idea as to how to start researching organizations or researching what to invest in, it's scary. And so they listen to the people that they believe to have more information than they do, instead of adopting the habit of understanding finance and beginning to do their own research. As much as you say do your own research, investing has considerable risk and et cetera, it's uncharted territory for a lot of people. So the likelihood of them actually doing it is still slim to none. And because of that, they just listen to what someone else says. I don't want to be the person that people are listening to for investment advice. At least not right now.
Because that's the thing that I'm like, yeah, there are a lot of people that can tell you like, invest in this, invest in that, but let's say I want to do my own research.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really know where to start.
Start. That question right there is a question that you can Google. And perhaps a lot of these financial literacy leaders will pop up. And they have hours upon hours upon hours of advice as to what you should be looking for, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, etc. I watch those people as well. I do my own research as well. I have notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks of strategy, financial strategy. But it's still not something that I focus on primarily. So it's not something that I tend to give advice on, even though I'm familiar with it.
And what is an investment, not necessarily financial, that people are really overlooking when they're in their 20s?
The investment in your health. Because they're in their 20s. They're very young. And naive. Part of of that naivete is thinking that you're going to have this capability, physical capability forever. That you're going to have that youthful feeling forever. But because you don't know what it's like not to have it, you can't imagine not having it. There's no context for it. Right? When someone says you're not going to have the energy for that, maybe you just process that as you're going to be tired. And it's like, no. It literally means you don't have the capacity for it. It's not about being tired. It's not that you can take a nap and wake up and feel youthful again. No, you can wake up and not feel tired, but you won't feel youthful. But because people in their 20s don't really have context for what that means, because they've never experienced it, they don't really value their bodies or getting the most that they can possibly get out of their bodies in a way that's productive, in a way that serves them. Your body has memory. It's not just muscle memory. It's also, if you get sick in your later years of life, your body calls on its earlier years, the memory from its earlier years when it was actually healthy, and tries to do what it did in those earlier years to regain that health. But if you haven't been taking care of yourself, there's not much of a memory there for your body. So it's harder for your body to heal. The more you take advantage of your body in your 20s, the more likely you are to develop a habit to continue to do that. Meaning you're going to carry that behavior into your 30s. And oftentimes, if you continue to do that, the issues really start to pop up in your 40s. The habits that you adopted in your 20s, the consequence of them, if you don't change them, begin to show up in your 40s. Right. So they say. I'm not in my 40s. Right. But when I ask around, that's confirmed almost 100% of the time. There are a few exceptions. A few people with exceptional genes, and some others who took really good care of themselves. Yeah, they had experiences, but they didn't take it overboard. And they didn't adopt habits that they, in their 20s, that they didn't break by the time they got to their 30s, especially their mid-30s. So, I would say health. Health is the number one investment that people who are in their 20s tend not to make. And it could potentially be the worst aspect of their lives that they overlook until they have to pay close attention to it. And by that time, it's harder. It's harder to regain and maintain health.
So what are some healthy habits that a young bull can take?
The healthy habits are those that we all know of. Right? We've all been hearing the same thing our entire lives. Exercise, that in itself is an entire discipline, which people have dedicated their entire lives to. You don't have to get that caught up in all the details and politics of training. Right? It can be really simple. Move your body. Walk. Do some push-ups. Do some sit-ups. Get into resistance training. The basics. The fundamentals will carry you through and do a lot for you. Right? So you don't need to do all of the creative things. And you don't have to be over the top with it. Focus on the fundamentals. Focus on moving your body. Focus on sweating. Right? Breaking the sweat. focusing on challenging yourself physically. Yeah. That's nothing new. That's not anything that someone hasn't heard before. As far as eat a balanced diet. That means something different for different people. Learn your body. Don't be afraid of it. Learn it while you're actually healthy, because then you don't really receive much bad news. Yeah, you'll be confronted with the fact that you're not invincible, maybe. Maybe you have some food allergies or something like that. Yes, you just can't eat whatever you want to eat. Right? But for the most part, it won't be any bad news while you're young and still healthy. And then implement those things that you learn. Sleep. Sleep is important. Right? Keeping your stress levels low. That's important. If you can do those 4 things, you're off to a pretty good start. So, and those are not new things. Those are things that we've been hearing our entire lives. Right? You just don't have to do them when you're younger. And when you don't do them, you don't really see the consequence of it. You still feel youthful, you still feel young. So it doesn't feel like you missed out on anything, even though you've been ignoring this advice. But eventually it catches up with you. And you're so numb to that advice that you almost forgot it. At least it feels like you did. Right? It's not new to you, but you forgot about having the opportunity to work out. You forgot that was an option for you. Right? And also, the longer you don't do it, the harder it is to adopt it when you start doing it. So, but studies show, if you train for 6 months, you'll train straight. If you train for 6 months straight, chances are you'll train for the rest of your life. Even if you fall off for a week, a month even, your body will feel the desire to get back into the gym, and you'll get back into the gym at some point.
Yeah, that too. It's like you can live pretty unhealthy in the beginning, but then if you really make that shift, you can get back to like quote unquote like base level.
Yeah.
In like 6 months.
Well, I don't know about that from a health perspective, but you can adopt the habit of training your body physically in 6 months. Sometimes it takes longer to get back to basic health because it takes longer than that for your body to reproduce itself. What I mean by that is your cells are constantly reproducing themselves. Right? You can see it with your skin. There's something known as dead skin. So that must mean the skin that you have is live skin, but it will die eventually. Right? That means your body is constantly reproducing new skin. It does that with everything. In just about 2 years, everything in your body is new. When your body is working properly. Right? Everything. All your organs are new, everything is new. So I wouldn't say 6 months, but if you stick with it, you'll definitely be healthy. And over time, of course, your body loses the capacity to do this, to recreate itself, and that's why things start to break down. Because when you were a child, your body was able to reproduce at 100%, if not even more. Right? Not so much as you age. Right? Drops to 70%, 60%. And by the time you're really old, maybe it's 20%. So it's harder to bounce back from things. That's why the longer you stay healthy, the better. And if you're training, chances are you'll stay healthy longer. Because, for example, resistance training helps to keep your body young because it sends a signal to your cells that your body is still young. there's still demands on your body. So your body has to reproduce itself at a level that's able to keep up with these demands. And the more you feed your body proper nutrition, the more you feed your body proper information, proper stimuli, it's not just the food, right? Because oftentimes we're in survival mode, not because of what we eat. We're in survival mode because of the conditions in which we surround ourselves with, the thoughts that we dwell on, in addition to the food, right? The things we believe that impacts us as well. Right? Just your body fighting the stress that it feels is a workout in itself. There's a lot of energy that's being depleted trying for your body when it's trying to keep you functional, even though it has to fight off this stress on a day-to-day basis that is extremely taxing on your body. So that's why they say stress can kill you, because it can. So the more you feed your body, the better you feed your body, the better chance you have at maintaining your health over an extended period of time.
That sometimes kind of sounds in my head very conflicting. And I'm talking about if you're trying to progress in this life, be an entrepreneur, that sounds stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you want to keep your stress levels low.
Yeah, but are you an entrepreneur? Some people are trying to be entrepreneurs, they're not really entrepreneurs. They're not wired to be entrepreneurs. They're wired to be employees, but because there's this entrepreneurship craze that's currently happening, there are a lot of people who feel pressured to be an entrepreneur. And if they're not an entrepreneur, they feel like they're failing. Right? So the stress of not being an entrepreneur for them, until they become entrepreneurs, of course, is almost too much for them to bear. So they take their chance at being an entrepreneur. For an entrepreneur, someone who's really an entrepreneur, having a job is way more stressful than being an entrepreneur. Life brings about stress. I'm not saying that there would be no stress. But there's stress that serves you and stress that doesn't. You just get the opportunity to choose your stress. And also stress is really a code word for fear. And when you realize that, you realize stress is optional because it's based on your perspective. If you change your perspective, chances are you won't process the information or process the situation as stressful. It's all on how you view life and how you view the circumstance. Fear is an illusion that you buy into. If you don't buy into it, you're not fearful. Doesn't mean that there's no danger there. Danger is very real. Danger is not an illusion, but fear is.
How do you know which one is which?
Experience.
But
Experience is how you know which one is which.
doesn't
Experience is how you know the impact of your perspective. You don't know that without that. You have no context for anything without the experience. You might have someone else's life. You may have a lot of information. You may have wisdom that's passed to you from someone else. But unless you have enough wisdom to internalize that, meaning unless I can meet you where you are with the information or the wisdom that I'm bestowing upon you, it's just a good conversation. until you have the experience that meets this wisdom, chances are not much in your life will change.
Yeah, again, I'm like stress and like eating healthy and sleeping well. It's kind of tough to do that for like when you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do want to go to parties. You do want to pass your exams.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the financial means necessary to really eat that healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of noodles and coffees.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about that then?
Not being distracted by the noodles and coffee. Being clear on what you went to college for. It's a long question, but how do you maintain not being distracted by, how do you maintain your health as a college student? Going to college, having all of this food that's not necessarily healthy for you, having access to parties, beer, alcohol, and other things. Having to perform academically, so staying up late, long hours, drinking a lot of coffee, and not necessarily eating properly, because chances are at that point your body is trained to burn sugar. So sugar becomes the fuel, and sugar is not good for your body, of course. So how do you remain healthy in college while still having the collegiate experience, of course, right? You still want to go to parties, you want to be social, you want to have, you want to eat a cheeseburger from time to time, or pizza, and be fine. I would say, at least in my experience, it was a myth that college didn't have healthy options. It may not have had the healthiest options, but they were healthy options. There was fruit that you can eat at college. Probably wasn't organic fruit, right? But it was fruit. And that fruit is healthier than a cheeseburger, chances are, right? You had pancakes, you had bacon, you had eggs, you had French toast, but you also had oatmeal, right? And a bunch of different types of oatmeal. So you didn't have to get the one with sugar. And a lot of people in college had food allergies, so they couldn't eat the things that contribute to the freshman 15 or the freshman 30. Their bodies just wouldn't allow it. I knew a guy, his name was David Shampoo. Cool, man. And he had a lot of food allergies. He ate very healthy compared to what other people were eating. Every day it was just plain rice, maybe some chicken from time to time. They made his chicken differently, right? It wasn't like because he was eating chicken, he ate the same chicken everybody else ate. Right? They had a different recipe for him. He wasn't a rich kid, at least as far as I know. They did that for people who had food allergies, right? But it was also a private institution. I don't know what happens in other colleges. But I say that to say there are options. It just depends on how focused you are. There were some people, for example, the people who went to the gym, we knew all of them. Because they were the ones that was consistent, right? If you go to the gym consistently, chances are you're gonna know the other people that go to the gym consistently. We always knew when there was a new face in the gym. And it was always a matter of time for them to prove if they were gonna be consistent or not. And if they were, they kind of joined the crew, right? So you do have options. There's a gym on campus, multiple. There are bike trails on campus. There's a tennis court on campus. There's multiple basketball courts on campus. There were hockey rinks on campus. The campus itself is large. If you just want to walk around the campus, it's a beautiful campus. That in itself is an exercise and you get a beautiful view. A lot of people ran around the campus because they like to run outdoors. There were trails on campus. A lot of people skied in the wintertime. So there was a lot to do. There's a lot of opportunity for you to be physically fit on campus. And there were some places where you can go eat all the time. Now, if you're following a healthy diet, you probably shouldn't eat all the time. And when I look back at it, it's interesting because the places that were open during the hours that you shouldn't eat had all of the worst food for you. The places that were open during the hours that you should eat had all of the best food for you. But all of that is implied. All of that is insinuated. If you don't know what's happening, you don't know what's happening. And a lot of us didn't know. So a lot of people do gain the freshman 15 or the freshman 30. A lot of people come into college one way, and by the time they leave, meaning graduate, they look very differently. The 4 years show on them. And they can show in a positive way and they can show in a negative way, however you perceive it, but it does show. So again, it's up to you how you want it to go. But to say that the option is not there, it's not true. You don't have to drink coffee. What is in the coffee that you want? Caffeine. There's caffeinated tea. You don't have to add any sugar to it. For example, I drink tea with no sugar, no milk, no anything. I just drink the tea. That's it. So, and I've been doing that for years. And there's a lot of people that do that. So you can be healthy. There were people on campus that went to parties, but they were very selective about what parties they went to. The big parties, the parties that seemed to be a big deal, they were at them, but they weren't out every weekend. It was a thing when they came out. When you seen them out, it was like, oh, okay. So it's just about having your priorities in order with everything, because that's every aspect of life. When you walk down a block, you might run into a McDonald's. Do you have the willpower not to walk into McDonald's? And chances are the McDonald's doesn't get your attention when you're not interested in leading a healthy life as much as it does when you become interested in living a healthy life. Then you really notice the McDonald's. Until you don't. It comes a point where you don't even see it anymore. It's there, but because it's not a part of your lifestyle, it's not a part of your reality, it's almost as if it isn't. We walk past a lot of McDonald's. We don't see any of them. Somebody kind of got to point it out, oh, there's a McDonald's. Yeah, we may see the arcs. Yes, we see the golden arcs. We see that there's a McDonald's there. But it doesn't really register that this is food and this is, you should eat this, and there's no craving that comes up. And none of that happens really. It's very rare when it does. And that's the case for a lot of things. You pass a liquor store. It's just another building. It's just another store. You pass, you name it, whatever it is that you're not interested in. So it's all about how sharp is your vision. You can remain healthy, but how sharp is your vision? And again, college is one of those places where you can really train that vision. because there's way more spoils after college, outside of those collegiate grounds, than there are on those collegiate grounds. So whatever it is that you think you have a hard time running away from during your collegiate experience, there's a lot more of that in the real world. Because when you're 29 with 2 kids, a job, a mortgage, a husband, then you could really say to yourself, you have a reason to stay up at night and drink a bunch of coffee because you got to get this work done. As opposed to being 19 in college, no children, no mortgage, no partner. And the biggest problem you have is passing this test. So on a person, because as you age, the stakes get higher, especially for your health. Because without it, the possibilities are limited. And you probably don't even care about anything else. When you have your health, you have a lot of problems. When you don't have your health, you have one problem. Maintain your health, because problems are a sign of life. So try to have as many of them as you possibly can, but good problems. Try to have as many good problems as you possibly can as well. Some that challenge you, some that you need to get done. But a good problem is, if you didn't solve it, your life would still be great. But you have to work to get yourself into that position. So before you get to that place in your life, you're going to have a lot of problems that's going to feel like you have to get them done. And if you want to get to a space of having good problems, then you do have to get them done. You have to get them resolved.
How was your college experience as far as partying and being tempted by party favors?
I didn't have that experience. My collegiate experience was turbulent, but not for that reason. It was turbulent because my personal life was very turbulent. And I was trying not to be distracted by my personal life and stay in college after losing scholarships. So my objective was finding a way to pay myself through school and making sure that when I was done with school, I wasn't going back to the projects.
How did you go about that?
Being resourceful. Talking to as many people as I possibly could about my situation that I thought could help me at least. And doing exactly what it is that they said. Showing up daily. I remember being in college and I think I paid for the semester. The last week of the semester. Like I was taking finals and hadn't paid for one class. And there was a woman there who had let me, who was like, kind of like, she kept putting my file at the bottom so that she had other names to take off and other things to do before she got back to my file. Because she was like, yo, I never seen a kid want to stay in college this much. I never seen it. So she would keep trying to help me. And I would speak to a bunch of people in a bunch of different offices to let them know what my situation was, and showing up every day while I was trying to figure it out. And I was actually doing pretty well in my classes. Right? So I wasn't doing the best, but I was doing pretty well. Her name was Jerry. Jerry was solid. And there was another woman named Trish. Trish Dobb. She actually got me into the school. So I had some assistance with people who they saw something in me. And they saw that I was hungry. And they respected that. So they helped me. Long story short, that last week of the semester, she was like, you can take your test, you can do everything, and you can pass it. But if nothing comes through, you can't come back next semester. And it came through. Yeah, that's what happened. And then I had the same thing the next year. It was like, how I'm gonna pay for this year? And I could have taken out a loan, but I didn't take out a loan. I became an RA instead. A residence advisor, where you pretty much manage a dormitory facility alongside other RAs. Yeah, help each other. It's like it's a campus, it's a job on campus from the school, and they pay for your lodging, they pay for your room and board because you're working for the school. So that chopped a big amount off my tuition. I was looking for ways to be there. And that was one of the best jobs I ever had. And that was the first time where I was like, I see coaching in my future. But for me, it was always, I need to take this potential that I have and realize it before I coach anybody. Yeah, I can talk to you about life and different things of that nature, but I'm also still very young at that age. There was a lot of life that I hadn't experienced. So despite the fact that there was a lot of life I did experience, and there was constant confirmation of, being an old soul, being beyond my years, and etc. I had a standard for myself. And because of that standard, I wasn't comfortable looking people in their faces and giving them advice on things that I hadn't done at the highest level. Not to say that there isn't anything for you to learn, because there's always more for you to learn, regardless of how high of a level you think you're doing whatever it is that you're doing at. There's always room for growth. But I knew that there was something missing. I knew that there was an understanding that I didn't have. And so I didn't do it. I didn't jump into coaching right after college. At least I didn't do it in a way where I got paid for it. I did coaching, but it was never a check attached to it directly. I didn't charge for those services. But I ended up in leadership positions. Even when I wasn't in a leadership position formally, even when I didn't have the title of a leader, I still led. So that was my collegiate experience. Very high level.
And what did you do right after college then?
Went right back to the projects.
How was that experience?
Turbulent. Projects is the projects. The projects is the hood. They don't care that you got a degree. Actually, it's worse. Oh, you got a degree, huh? Look at this smart guy. Did all that shit for what? $47,000 a year, right? Remember you stayed in all those nights studying? Could have been out here chilling with us, living life. You out there working for the white man. Uh-huh. Now look at you. Right back on the block with us. Smart guy. How smart you feel now? You need a job? I got some money for you. I got something you can move for me. No, I'm good. I'm good. I had a very close friend who said, yo, you can come stay with me. She wasn't making a lot of money. I had no money to offer her. Don't worry about it, I got you. I'll cover everything. You come stay with me. That's a trap. What you're doing right now, I see you trying. I see the things that you're trying to get done, and I know you. I know what you're capable of. But that environment does not support that. And it was just in time. It was just in time. So I relocated, changed my environment, and that came from sharing. There was a time in my life where I didn't share anything about myself. And slowly but surely I started to open up and have conversations with people. And the more I started to have those conversations with people, the better our relationship became. The stronger our relationship became, the more opportunities presented themselves to me. And I learned, the more you open yourself up to the world, the more the world opens itself up to you. I changed my environment. I haven't been back to the block since. I see those people from time to time. I see those people that didn't see the vision, didn't understand. And I shake their hand and I hug them because I'm happy to see them. And I understand that they didn't see it. And I know why they didn't see it. I get it. I hope they can see a vision for themselves, though. That's bigger than the one that they had then. And I hope that they're on track toward fulfilling that vision. I haven't seen a lot of them in a while. Chances are I won't see a lot of them ever again. But I hope they see themselves. I hope they see how dope they are, because a lot of them were really dope. They were just afraid. They were afraid of their power. And they were afraid of someone else leaving them. And I get that now. I hope they're not so caught up in someone else leaving them that they learn to abandon themselves. I hope they see how great they were and how great they are for the ones that are still living. Because every time I go home, it's another mural up. It's more candles, it's more t-shirts, it's another picture on the corner with teddy bears and flowers. I hope they see that we're stronger together and that someone's seeing something bigger for their lives. It's probably the person that you should want to be around. And not to abuse or take advantage of, but just to see if some of that energy that person has can rub off on you, so that you can start pursuing different things in your life. I hope for the ones that are still around, I hope they see the importance of that and know that it's not too late. We were all in the same classes. We all grew up in the same neighborhood. And when I see some of them, they're like, yo, fam, how'd you do this? I hope they see they can do it too.